What is up, everyone? Today we're doing a video that I've never done before, or I did do it, but it was like 6 years ago. It was on the Black Sea, but it's a video that's commonly requested. I figured this is our perfect time to do so, and we are going to do a price breakdown of our freshly finished up build. As you guys know, we've been going crazy building this drift car for Austin, making his dream drift setup here, K-swapped ZN6 FRS with all the goodies around it. And today you guys are going to find out exactly how much this exact setup costs. So we've never done a video like this before, but we get requested for it quite a bit. So if you guys like this video, please physically like the video and let me know in the comments. And if there's any ways that we could improve these videos, or if there's any type of more information you'd like to know, please let us know in the comments, because we would love to potentially do it again for other builds. That being said, I want to start the video off with a little disclaimer, because the big thing here when it comes to project cars is prices can range dramatically for very similar setups. I would say you could do the exact same setup plus or minus 10 grand. You could definitely save money on a lot of mods that we do. There's a lot of stuff that wasn't needed to be done, but there's also many ways that you could make it way more expensive for yourself and the budget gets ridiculous. So trying to find that middle ground is something I think we did pretty good on this car, so keep that in mind. So when it comes to drift cars, there is many different levels to this, and it ranges dramatically. And trying to figure out a package that works for you and your needs is very important, and also planning for that package to make it all possible is also very important. That's stuff I really want to talk about. That's gonna be later on in the video, but for now, I want to get into the meat and potatoes of this thing and start giving you guys some raw numbers. This is weird. We never talk money.
I know, it kind of feels strange.
It feels strange, you know. This is
the reality of it for a lot of car guys.
This is. We're gonna start naming some stuff off, and I don't want you guys to be discouraged. I don't want this to be a discouraging thing. I want this to be more of a teaching moment for you guys, so you know what you're getting in for, and so you could plan for and make sure you actually have a successful experience. Now keep that in mind that the prices that we're gonna be saying right now is full retail value. This is if you go on the website and order this right now at full retail cost. No Black Friday deals, no discounts, no wholesale accounts, no used parts, no friend hookups, no nothing. Straight retail. Of course, that adds up pretty quick. So before we even start, I want to know what you guys think. What do you think as the car sits right now? What is the total retail number? Put it in the comments. No scrolling to the end and guess. I want to see what you guys think. We're gonna start with price point number one, and that is actually purchasing the chassis. So Austin did himself pretty good here, and he got his chassis for $3,200. Not too bad.
Not too bad.
Considering the condition of the car and everything, it's been absolutely amazing. We did, however, save some money by actually getting ourselves an auto chassis, which definitely brought the price point down. Used chassis can range quite a bit, so keep that in mind. But you gotta remember, the auto chassis, depending on your swap, could actually cost you more money in the future, but for us, it was perfect. Give it. There you go.
Oh yeah, it's knocking.
So the next big thing we need is we need a drivetrain, right? And in our situation, we have our K-Series engine with the BMW transmission, and to start off was the price of the actual engine, and we have that averaged out to about $1,000. When it comes to the K-Series, there's a lot of different long blocks you could utilize, but I would say they all average out to about $1,000, which isn't too bad. Mounted behind our K-Series, we have our transmission, which is a BMW ZF transmission. You could use a 5-speed or a 6-speed. In our situation, we went with a 6-speed, which I would say goes for about $700 on Marketplace. So far, it sounds pretty reasonable, right? But now we have to go into our first big cost when it comes to the swap, and that is going to be the swap kit itself. So for us, we went with a full TF Works swap kit for the ZN6. There are other swap kits, and you could also do different types of piecing together to make it all work, but we made our life easy and did one full package, and that comes out to a price of $3,600. So that might sound like a large initial pricing, but you get a lot of goodies within that package. What we get is we get the custom mounts for not only the engine but the transmission. We get the full custom pan. We get the shifter and the linkage. We get a twin disc clutch, which is huge, with the adapter plate to adapt our engine to our BMW transmission, and it comes with a custom pickup tube to work with the rear-wheel drive panel. So at this point, we're just about ready to bolt in our rear-wheel drive K-Series into our new FRS chassis. But before we do that, we have to do some modifications to the engine to make it accept for the rear-wheel drive. Now for us, we kept it really simple. We kept the head completely stock. But what we do have to do is we did replace the timing components in the oil pump. We have to replace oil pump to work with this pan. It's a Type S oil pump. And when it comes to chains and guides, it's always good to replace them. So all of that with new everything averages out to about $700. But at this point, we are now able to get our engine together, get our custom swap kit components in, and now we have the drivetrain bolted in our FRS. So now what this does is you have a BRZ and you have a K-Series with the transmission bolted into your car. We got it bolted up. Now to attach it to your drivetrain, we still need a drive shaft, and the drive shaft prices range a little bit because they have a little bit of a custom drive shaft here. I averaged it out to about $1,000 for a drive shaft. So the easy part is done, and I know that sounds crazy, but this is where the swap actually begins. And I know that's hard, and this is a really big point that I want to make because this is where a lot of people get lost. This is the part of the build that really makes or breaks someone, because this is where it gets very physically intensive and very monetarily extensive. Yeah. That's
Lots of money.
Lots of money. So this is the part of the swap where the prices can range dramatically, right? There's way more ways that we could complicate this, but there is an immense amount of ways that we can simplify this. So keep that in mind when we're naming our prices, because not everything is needed. Not everything is needed at the level that we did it, but there's also ways to accidentally overdo it and spend a lot of money. Moving on to my second point, this is where planning becomes so important. As you guys know, I love engine swaps, and I have been doing engine swaps for a long time. We have swapped so many different engines into so many different chassis. Like almost everything in here is swapped at this point. And so I've had many years to kind of figure this out and realize the importance of planning, because without proper planning, you're gonna burn yourself out. You're gonna hate the car, you're gonna fall behind with the project. And so this is the part that a lot of people end up getting overwhelmed, falling out of love with their car, selling it, and moving on to the next thing. So right now, this is where the planning is the most important. Oh, I just bought this car. It looks so sick with the K in it. I want to buy some Gope wheels. I want to buy some Kabuki mirrors. I want to buy some Origin Aero for it. But stop. I know it's tempting, and I know it will help a little bit with the motivation. You want to make your car look cool, so you motivation to work on it. But the problem is here, this stuff is so expensive. Making sure you spend the money in the right way to keep you motivated is absolutely huge. We really need to focus on the actual swap first, because we have to save up money throughout the build, right? You just can't buy all of these parts brand new at once, at least the average person. Making sure you spend money on the project that you could still work on the car while saving up money is huge, because if you're not working on the car and you're just sitting there saving money, it's gonna feel more overwhelming, you're gonna get bored, and you're gonna start to hate the car. So planning the swap to spend the money in the way that allows you to continue working on it organically is absolutely huge. That doesn't just mean like parts around the car. I mean, I was talking about parts within the swap. Like think about an ECU, right? When do we need an ECU? First startup. That shouldn't be the first thing you buy. I know a lot of people just want to get it out of the way, and I'm probably I'm probably the worst person to say this because I'm trying to sell ECUs, but realistically, you don't need it till the last step. So save yourself the $1,500 and put it on parts that allow you to start working on your actual car. So there's no perfect way and there's no perfect order in building these things. Luckily for us, we found a pretty good recipe because we always have to film a video, right? We have to film a video that has steady progress, and it's helped us kind of write a recipe that allows us to kind of work with that at the same time. We constantly need to have something to do. So it's helped me kind of figure out a package that works for me. So the whole thing now is we have to connect the swap to the car, right? We got to start making the drivetrain work. Now where I like to start is the manifolds. We have our intake manifold right here, and we have our exhaust manifold. That will start getting pieces on the engine because a lot starts bolting on around that. So for our intake manifold, what we have is we have a K-Power intake that is a $600 manifold. That being said, there's way more expensive option out there. I mean, Spoon has a carbon intake on his car, which is quite a heftier price tag. And then there's also cheaper options out there if you could find them. Getting secondhand is never a bad idea either. Now when it comes to the exhaust manifold, it gets a little bit more expensive since we are turboing this. If you're keeping it NA, no problem, that saves you a lot of money. But the exhaust manifold for this, I would say they average out to about $1,200. There's a bunch of different manifolds on the kit. TF sells a couple different ones. Even the R-Tech manifold is a great option, but they average out around $1,200. So that was your ECU money, right? Now I got the engine more dressed up and we can move on to different systems. So where I want to go next is the fuel system, because now that we have our intake on, we can get our rail, we can get our injectors in, and we can now start attaching this thing to the car. Now for us, we have a pretty big fuel system here. You can keep it a lot simpler, but this is my package here. Our entire fuel system is $1,900. Now that might sound like a lot, but let me break it down for you. So we have our aftermarket hanger with pumps that costs around $600. Now I average that out with about $200 in AN line, about $300 in AN fittings. We have $100 in the filter. We have $350 on the injectors, which isn't bad. We have $200 for the fuel pressure regulator and the fittings on the regulator itself, and $150 for the fuel rail. Now that's huge because we have our first system fully finished. The fuel system is now done and we can move on to the next piece. So I'm gonna move on to the next system, and that is gonna be cooling. Now with the cooling system here, we have an aftermarket radiator, we have the fans, we have our custom rear-wheel drive water necks, Now we do have a swirl pod in our system, which isn't needed, so I'm gonna kind of keep that at the price point here. So with this, of course, like any system, we could save some money here with some good research. We found out a cheap Mark III Volkswagen radiator fits in here beautifully. That's a $300 radiator. Now for me, I splurge on the fans. It's a drift car, so I want some beefy ass fans on this thing for insurance. You don't have to go so crazy with fans, but for us, we did $400 in fans.
It's really not bad.
It's not that bad.
Really good set of fans.
Exactly. Now with that, we move on to our custom rear-wheel drive water necks there, and that gets a little bit pricey since they are swap components, but those are $440. And then to tie it all together, we need our radiator hoses, which we figured out S2000 radiator hoses fit, and that is about $140 for some aftermarket hoses. We got 2 system done, we're making some leeway, it's feeling good, everyone's happy, motivated on your swap. So we're gonna move on to another system that's easy to complete, and that is gonna be the accessories, because every engine needs their accessories. For us, we just got a new crank pulley because the one you're gonna get is probably old and dingy. It's always nice to replace a water pump, we got an alternator, and then we have our belt tensioner kit. Now the good thing about the K-Series is they made so many cars with them that the accessories are actually quite affordable, so I like to average all the accessories together to be about $600. So we're gonna move on to the next major system of the car, and that's basically everything focused on the turbo. Now this one gets a little expensive and you could spend money in different orders, but we're gonna start with our throttle body and work it all the way back to our exhaust. So for us, we have an E-throttle chassis, so we need to convert to E-throttle on the throttle body. So what we used was a Bosch throttle body with an adapter. And this collectively is about $290. Now there is cheaper ways to do it because there are a couple kits that allow you to utilize the factory FA20 throttle body, which are very, very cheap. But for us, we use the Bosch one. So we're gonna skip the piping for a second because we need to get an intercooler actually bolted onto the car. For us, we went with the Treadzone intercooler. This is a good bang for the buck. This one was about $350, but there are cheaper options out there. The next big chunk of change that we need to spend is gonna be the turbo itself, because once we get the turbo on, we can start connecting all the pipes. Now, when it comes to turbos, we all know there's a million options out there. You can get an eBay turbo, you can step up, you can get a Pulsar, you can get a precision journal bearing, a precision ball bearing, get a Garrett. So keep that one in mind. For us, we have a ball bearing precision 5858, which retails about $1,700. Now we have some meat on our bones here. The car is gonna start looking pretty damn complete at this point. This is the point in the project where people get frustrated, they give up, put on Marketplace and say, just needs a tune, right? It looks like it, but stop. We're getting over the hump. We're getting somewhere, and you should be excited. You should be very motivated. You should be proud of yourself for making it this far.
We're so close.
We're so close. We do have a lot of work to do. But for now, we want to connect the intercooler piping to our throttle body and our turbo. This is our first major hurdle because this is where we finally need fabrication work. Unfortunately, there is no prefab kit for intercooler on these cars. Some swaps, they are prefab kits, so it makes life easy. You buy it and you bolt it on. But this is time when you actually have to rely on someone else, and this is where it gets a little tricky. Pricing this is a little weird because fabrication is involved. Now, fabricators can be very expensive. They can be very hard to find. They can be very hard to get time in their shop to actually do it for you. So this one is going to be part of the planning and seeing where you could fit into their schedule. We don't have to complete the system right now because you can get your car starting and running without intercooler piping, but obviously when you go to actually drive it and tune it, you need intercooler piping. So figure out where this could fit in your timeline, in your budget. I averaged it out to about $600 for the intercooler piping. Now, I'd say that's in the mid tier because you can get upwards of $1,200, you can get downward to your homie that's just trying to help you out and get it down to a couple $100s. But at the end of the day, this is going to be a major hurdle, so start planning mentally and monetarily for that. But of course, there's plenty more spending to be had in this swap because there's a lot more to do. So we're gonna move on to the exhaust side so we can finish up this piping right here. Another thing that you don't really need towards the end when you get closer to startup, you could start it without exhaust on it, but no one likes that. It's loud, annoying. You can't actually start to put some numbers at the tune. So whatever you need to get yourself motivated, I understand. For us, we kept it on the simpler side because what we utilized was a factory catback exhaust. And the reason why I like doing that in some swaps is because it ends up being cheaper. For a lot of cars, there's very affordable options for catbacks. For us, we have an ISR catback, which gets the majority of our exhaust complete for us, and that is $500 for the catback. So if you can use an off-the-shelf one, I would suggest it. But the big thing here is the downpipe. We now have to connect our turbo to our catback, right? Because our catback's only gonna be somewhere right around there. So they need to be connected. Now TF Works does make their off-the-shelf catback that's meant for an S chassis and a couple of their other swaps. For us, we actually found that it lined up very closely. That downpipe actually fits our chassis really well, but it still needed to be finished connecting. So I would say their off-the-shelf downpipe I believe is around $550, but then you still have to pay someone to fabricate that midsection, which I hope you can get a half decent deal on. So I'd say that around $200 to $400. We are getting somewhere. We're close. It's gonna start looking pretty damn complete, but there is, once again, more money to spend, and that's just the reality of building cars. So since we decided to turbo this thing, we wanted that power, we have some other bits that need to make it all work. So we do need a wastegate. And the price of wastegates do vary depending on the brand. As you can get an eBay one and risk it, you can get a Pulsar one and do your thing, or you can spend the money and get yourself a nice wastegate. This is from the previous swap. This has a tile on it, but my favorite wastegate to go with is a Turbo Smart, which is about $450 retail for the size that we need for this. To make the wastegate all work, we do need a boost controller, and we do need boost controller lines. So on this car, I did splurge a little bit because it's all 3 AN lines with a Link branded boost controller, so that does add up. If you want to save yourself some money, you could always just use rubber hose as long as you do proper heat management, and you can run an off-brand boost controller. I'm not going to yell at you for doing that. For our boost controller and lines, I said about $400. All right, congratulations. You are almost ready to start and drive your car. But there's one last big hurdle of money that you have to spend to do so, and that is going to be on the electronics and the wire harness. Wiring is a big one that the price can range dramatically because it all depends on your amenities and your quality, right? For us, we wanted a high quality painless harness that we were able to put on very effortlessly, that communicated with our chassis in all the OEM ways. We wanted everything to work OEM. Don't care if your cluster work, this, and all the functions work, and you just want to make something work, you could always do in cheaper forms, maybe starting with like a stock Honda harness, cutting it up, wiring it in, and doing your ordeal. But we went with a full wiring specialist harness that allowed us to just plug everything in. The harness, with everything we wanted, was about $1,800. That being said, you could select cheaper options on the harness too if you're running less sensors, if you're running different ECUs. Now to physically start this car, we now need an ECU, which is going to be a huge hurdle once again, because ECUs are expensive. Now what we went with is a Link Fury. This is Link's top of the line for the G4X series, the Link Fury, and these run about $2,000. They're a pricey product, but they're an amazing product that allow us to have optimal control of what we have. Now there's cheaper ways of doing it. You could run different ECUs, or if you want to, you could actually run a K-Series plug-and-play ECU, which I think is about $1,450 for a plug-and-play K-Series harness. Now, the K-Series plug-and-play ECU is a great ECU. It's basically a Link Extreme set to just plug into a Honda plug, which is really nice. So if you're using a factory harness converted, or if you're just using an off-the-shelf harness that has that plug, it saves you that extra bit of wiring. Now the only huge extra bit about the Link Fury is the fact that it has an internal wideband, so now we don't have to spend the $200 to $400 for a wideband controller. It's already built into the ECU. Now to have optimal control of our engine setup and to have a peace of mind, we did add some extra sensors onto the engine that makes things a little bit pricier. For us, what we have is we have a map sensor, which is about $110, which is something that you 100% need. We did, however, add 2 pressure sensors. We have oil pressure and fuel pressure, so the ECU can see that. Those do get a little bit pricey. Those are about $400 in sensors alone. And then, since this car is on ethanol, we decided to put a flex fuel sensor on it, which is an ethanol content sensor, which is about $240. And the last thing that we added was a intake air temperature sensor, which is about $80. Now it's a little pricey, and if you want to keep it simple, you can get away with just using a map sensor and an intake air temperature sensor, but I wanted that peace of mind with the flex and the pressure sensors. You're almost there. You're just about at the point that you could tell your friends you just need a tune and it's ready to go. Actually, not Marketplace just needs a tune. Actually just needs a tune. Now there's a couple little bits that we can add. You know, you always have to account for the random bits, right? The RTV, the hose clamps, the random hoses, then your fluids and all of that random bits. That stuff might catch you off guard sometimes, but if you can keep it simple and controlled, I average that out to about $300. That seems fair to go. Fluids in it, it's all sealed up, ready to go. Let's start this thing. You actually need a tune. At this point, you don't need a full tune. You need a base map, because we just want to hear the car run, right? We want to make sure that it can run, everything's working, it can maintain operating temp, give it a little bit of shakedown. So we need a startup map, which startup maps, if you hire a tuner, are cheaper. When it comes to pricing for startup maps with tuners, some guys will do it for free if you lock in a tune with them later on, right? I've seen a lot of tuners do that. They'll give you a startup map for free, but you have to lock in the fact that they will tune your car later on. Some guy just will charge as little as $100 up to $500 just for a startup map. Or I think it's always great to give it a shot yourself. This is kind of a bold statement, but it's definitely harder to hurt your engine with a startup than it is actually doing dyno pull. So I think a lot of people are more capable than they believe to actually give it a shot themselves. We actually have quite a few videos that I hope build some confidence in some people to build up a startup map so they could actually hear this thing run. And when it comes to pricing of that, we're gonna leave that one up in the air. Congratulations, you've officially completed your engine swap. Almost, you're so close. But this is a huge milestone and I hope you're super proud of yourself, because I swear doing an engine swap is like, I consider it like a good life lesson. It builds so much character, because not only do you have to do, you know, swap planning, financial planning, mental stability, mechanical, and then mental control is probably the biggest thing. You really learn a lot about yourself doing an engine swap, because as easy as it might look on the internet, because that's our job, is to make it look easy, this is a huge feat and you really should be proud of yourself. You did something amazing, and this is cool. This is awesome. But the last thing you need to do to finish it up, to really feel like you did something, is that you need to get it tuned, right? You want to see those power numbers. You need a good tune, because if you don't have a good tune, you're going to risk all that money and effort that you put into that car that you just invested in, and it's devastating. When it comes to pricing of tune, I tuned it. I'm lucky. I know how to tune cars. That's all my friends are very lucky.
Very lucky. Thank you.
We're very spoiled around here. But when it comes to the pricing of tune, it does average quite a bit. Now, I don't know if you guys have ever researched it yourself, but it ranges dramatically. You know, there are people out there that have very cheap tunes, but do you want to go to someone that does very cheap tunes? It's hard.
And risk some shit.
And risk some shit. I mean, do your research, because I know actually a lot of good tuners that are way too cheap. But I also know some pretty bad tuners that are way too expensive. That being said, I'm gonna average the price out. Expect to pay anywhere from $700 to $1,000 for a good tune. Especially if you are also tuning it on ethanol, it gets a little bit more pricey because it does take some extra work. But if you could budget yourself, give yourself a $1,000 budget, I think you'll be in a nice, safe zone to help complete your car, and boom, you have a car. It might look stock currently, but it's swapped. You did an amazing thing, and it's sick. And now it's time to spend some money on some parts of the car that make it even better. But the money spending isn't done yet, because though we have a running driving swap car, there are a lot of things that we can add to the whole system that really brings the build to the next level. So I'm gonna move on to what we have for our Chase base goodies in here that really helps us solidify everything in the bed. So what we have, which is a little bit of an expensive product, is the oil cooler kit. Now when it comes to drifting, cooling mods are basically a necessity, right? Because we are beating the absolute shit out of these cars for very long moments at a time, and we want a hot lap. We want to go out there constantly. We want to be out there all day, going around track with our friends. We don't want to have to sit there and cool every lap. So an oil cooler is huge. The whole Chase base oil cooler kit is about $700. But what that comes with is that we have our cooler itself, we have the mounting brackets, we have the custom AN lines, we have the oil filter adapters and all the fittings for it, and the areas for the extra pressure fittings, and that adds up to about $700. But with that kit, you get the complete system. So the next thing that we wanted to add was our ABS delete kit, because not only did we want to give ourselves some more room in the engine bay, since the ABS system takes up like this whole side, we also wanted a more consistent pedal feel, and we wanted to be able to change our brake bias on a fly to accommodate to our driving style. So that the full ABS delete kit with all the brake lines is $400. Actually, not too bad. So the last thing that we needed to do was we needed to add a clutch pedal and a clutch line to this system, because this car was originally auto, so we had some conversion things here. So luckily, the manual pedals are super cheap on eBay. For the whole manual pedal conversion, it was $100 on eBay, and you can't beat that. Now what we do have to do is we do have to adapt that to run with our ZF trans. Now instead of running a stock master cylinder, I wanted to upgrade to a tilt master cylinder, because of the overall engagement and the pedal feel would be so much better for our swap. So Chase Base makes the full kit that allowed us to bolt in a tilt master cylinder and the full custom line kit to adapt it to the ZF transmission with the delay valve in it, which is huge for the ZFs. And that whole thing was about $600 for every piece of the puzzle, and that finished up our entire clutch line. Now at this point, you could officially go do this. He's gonna live on that limiter, I already know it. I hope you're having fun, and I hope you're not too burnt out, because this is where the fun starts, because now you have your drivetrain that makes the noises, makes the power, does all the things that you want. You have a usable ZN6 chassis.
Your vision has come to life.
Your vision has come to life, and you know, I keep obviously tailoring it for the ZN6 because that's what we did, but a lot of these prices and a lot of this headache and fun, it massages very similar to each build. The price will change a little bit depending on swap kit on engine you're working with. But in terms of components, pricing is very similar and the parts are very similar. So just use it as a reference. But now we're at the point where we can actually start doing the mods that personalize the car to you. And this is where the price and the planning is going to be all over the place, because now the planning isn't super important, because the planning is more into what you think is most important to yourself. This is where it all becomes personal. This is where you pick what wheels you want. You pick if you want to lower the car, how you want to lower it. You got to pick if you want a bucket seat. Do you want a bucket seat before the wheels? Doesn't matter. You know, maybe you want stock wheels, but you want a nice bucket seat, or maybe you want to wait. You know what I mean? It's all about now picking the order that works for you. The first step most people do is lower their car, right? It's the first big mod you can do to your car that makes it look all done up. And we waited too damn long to lower this car. Coilovers for this car they were $1,300. Now the price of the coils range a little bit. You can get some cheap ass coilovers for 500 bucks. You're gonna buy twice, buy 3 times and be mad, so it's worth spending the money. BCs are definitely on the better pricing side, but you can go upwards of, I mean, coilovers can go up to 4 or 5 grand if you care, you know what I mean? I'm gonna say 1,300 bucks, get your car low, get it looking cool. What's next? I don't know. I like doing wheels next because boom, your car is, with 2 pieces, your car is fully transformed. Now, when it comes to wheels, the pricing we know changes.
So much.
It ranges so much. I mean, you can get some nice little Workmeisters. Those are like 3 grand. You can get some Blitz 03s, which are stupid, and don't spend the money on those things. You can get some new name brand wheels, which I priced out for having Rays on this car. So you can get a set of 57 DRs or 57 CRs for your car for about $2,200, brand new, which is really nice. And then I added about $450 on tires for that. Obviously tires can range dramatically, but we'll average out to about $450. Oh man, Jim, I'm having a real hard time finding wheels for my car. Well, duh, the car is 5x100. It's so hard to find good fitting wheels on these cars that are 5x100. And so what we did is we converted to the 5x114 hub on this chassis. The kit fully sold by GK Tech, you guys saw in the last video. That full kit is about $1,100. And that will get us with 5x114 hubs and rotors. You can actually find some damn cool wheels for this car. Next common mod boys like to do is get a steering wheel in their car. Right? I don't care what the purpose of your car is, getting rid of that stock steering wheel is huge. And so what we need is we need a short hub, a quick release, and we need a fancy little steering wheel here. So when it comes to short hub and quick releases, we keep it simple. We go with the energy products because they're the best bang for the buck. So we have 150 for the short hub, we have 120 for the quick release, and then Austin wanted to go with a Vertex wheel. So we priced about $450. So between Vertex and that Nardi quality, you're gonna be in the $400 to $600 range, unless you wanna go with something even more fancy if you get like a signature steering wheel, or you can go cheaper if you wanna go with something like an Energy or a Grip Royal wheel. And boom, look at you, you're low, you got wheels, you got a fancy steering wheel set up, you could do the whole, wait for it, ping. Sometimes they go ping. But now we actually have to have a purpose for the car. This is where we start spending money on the actual purpose of the car other than it feeling, sounding, and looking good. So at this point, I hope you stopped looking at your bank account because you're gonna hate yourself.
It's just the life of a car guy.
I think I've never done this because I don't want to know what I spent on cars. You almost have to be ignorant to keep yourself sane because...
Yeah, I feel dirty doing this video.
Oh, dude, it's so gross. To think how much money we spent on these cars is ridiculous. But we talked about it yesterday. It's like one of those things, it's like, you always find a way to spend your money. Like, the average person isn't good at saving money. You're gonna spend it some way. We have like this weird curse of car guys where it's like, we're saving money to spend on this stuff, or it's like, what do you spend money on if you're not a car guy?
We said yesterday, you make your life more comfortable.
Yeah, you spend money on to make your life more comfortable. We'll make our life a little more uncomfortable, save some money, buy these things, I don't know, going out more, maybe buy a fancy place, I don't know, entertainment systems,
yeah,
beer,
concert tickets.
I don't know, what do normal people, all my money goes to this stupid stuff, so I just do one of these. I don't know if it's if that's a toxic trait of mine or not, but I think being car guys, we are just toxic. I hope my mom doesn't watch this video. Steph has come to terms with it a very long time ago. If you guys are watching this with your partner, I'm so sorry. I hope you turned it off a long time ago. But for now, we are turning this thing into a drift car, right? That's the purpose of it. So now we actually have to spend some money on some drift mods, and of course with that comes some price points. Now, first drift mod I like to do is I like to get a bucket seat. I don't care what you're drifting. If you're drifting a stock car with a factory LSD or if you have a fully built pro car, you need a bucket seat, or else you're gonna get thrown around in the car, you won't be able to focus, and it's gonna be difficult. So Austin got himself a fancy little thrash sheet, one of our favorite brands, great quality, amazing styling. And with this, we priced their seats average around $1,000. There are way more expensive options out there between Fancy Brides and Recaros. There are way cheaper options if you want to get with like NRG, like Prism seat. Are they still the same company? Prisma seat. Yeah. Or you could find like a Corpo on Marketplace, something like that. So you don't have to splurge if you're just trying to get your car out there. But Austin, he went fancy with it. Since we're in the car, we'll talk about some more interior mods, and that is going to be a handbrake. All right, drifting, you want a handbrake. Do you need a handbrake to start? No. Do a lot of factory handbrakes work well enough? Yeah. Maybe you can get a little drift button, throw some nice pads in it, you might be good enough. But we did the buy once, cry once thing and went with a full hydraulic handbrake setup. Now we paid for a little bit for convenience because we have a handbrake that mounts very beautifully with our stock interior. That's all hidden, that mounts on our chassis, we don't have to do any fabrication. And so with that, the handbrake and the mount themselves, we also need to connect those to the rear. So we have a line kit, and then we have the dual caliper brackets, and then of course we need to buy a second set of calipers if we're gonna run two. And that full hydro handbrake setup for us adds up to about $1,100. Now that might sound like a large overall cost, but if you think about how many parts it takes to actually create that system, it's pretty damn fair. So at $1,100, we have a full hydraulic dual caliper setup that organically fits in our car beautifully. So now when it comes to the rest of the drift mods for this chassis, we actually kept it extremely simple on Austin's car, at least for our first rendition, and you can keep it very simple too, especially if you're just trying to get into it. We focused mainly on the angle kit itself. Now the price of angle kits range dramatically. I mean, you can go all the top tier to FDF and WiseFab, or you can keep it down and do bolt-on knuckle adapters. We did a simple package for us. So we just have a Villains modded knuckle, and we did the upgraded G-Tech tie rods, and we added longer brake lines to account for the more angle. So we got aftermarket brake lines. So everything with that was $220 for the knuckles, $85 for the extended brake lines, and then $260 for the upgraded inner and outer tie rods. So we kept it really simple in the front, and that only cost us about $560 of mods in the front of the car. When it came to the rear for drift mods, we kept it extremely simple. Now the only thing that we really did was an adjustable tow arm, and that was about $300 by GK Tech, but there's a couple of things we do plan on upgrading later on, which we'll talk about later on. You could change everything between subframe modifications, reinforcements, to bushings, to brackets, to every arm being adjustable. It can get really out of hand, but that's all tailoring to what you want out of your car and what level you want to take it to. For us, starting package, we just did the tow arm, and then we're gonna weld the diff. You could buy a two-way, you could upgrade your diff, you could do an axle upgrade, which we kind of do plan on doing eventually. But for now, only money we really have in the rear is those tow arms, which is $300. Woo!
We just spent a lot of money.
We just spent so much money. Ew. You got something special. Something really cool, something you really be proud of, and something that you should have a lot of fun with and unlock a whole new thing. We talked about it before, this is a luxury. We're very lucky we get to do this. We're very lucky that we have so much support that we do to allow us to do more of this, to allow me to help my friends and my employees to do this, and it's cool.
Thank you to all the companies. I'm very, very appreciative.
Thank you. And thank you to you guys for watching the videos that allow us to do this. This is huge. And honestly, anyone that can get this done at their home garage, I have immense amount of respect for. I'll tell you what, after doing it, I have, for so many years and doing so many cars, I'm not jaded to this. I'm still understand and give anyone props that can make this happen. For the guys that get to the track, that have cars like this at any level, it is a huge feat, and you should be really proud of yourself between finding a truck, finding a trailer, street driving a car, to building these cars, to the effort to get to events, to drive the cars. It's huge. Even if it's just a street car, to get to this point, you're putting in the effort, and no one should be able to look past that. Like, this is your resume, and you should be proud. That being said, we just spent a lot of money. But there is ways to do it cheaper. There is ways to do it immensely expensive. So Kai, I want to ask you, because you have no idea, because you haven't been paying attention, which is good. How much do you think the total is for this car? Now, there's a couple plus or minus, maybe like $1,000. I might have forgotten, whatever. But
all right. Well, I know how much Austin paid for the car, which is like $3,000
total. Yeah, everything as it sits.
Yeah.
Including the engine that was already here, or?
Well, if we were to buy everything again.
Okay, if we were to buy everything again, probably $50K.
That's actually, I don't know if I'm mad about that answer. Cool. Our grand total, drum roll please. That was so clear. 36.5. $36,000, $500, and that gets us as this sits right now. I mean, this is a good level car. This isn't like, the suspension's very simple right now, but in terms of everything else, it is a really good tier. And there's so many ways to get out there and do it for way cheaper, and you can go crazy and get to the next level and go more expensive, right? Like the limit is never, I mean, you can get to the limit of like the Pro car, which is ridiculous. You could do the next tier car, which is like Spoon's car, which Spoon's car is very similar, but it has some extra goodies. We did like a rough calculation. Spoon's car.
It's like 350Z, this, Spoon's car, Pro car. That's
and
how
it just
I see it.
Keeps going. It's all about finding what works for you. I hope you can kind of use this somewhat as a foundation. You know, it's hard because if you think of 36 as that total amount, it sounds like a lot. But a lot of the times you are building these cars over a course of a year, 2 years, 3 years. So if you could space it out, it doesn't seem as bad. And if you want to make yourself more gross, think about the project car you already have that might not be anywhere near this, and you might have even more money in it. But that's where planning is huge. Especially when you start paying for body panel, start paying for paint, it gets ridiculous. So just knowing what you get into is very massive. And I hope this doesn't deter any people. I hope this actually motivates people to make it happen and to have an understanding of what they actually are diving into, and helps plan for their next build. Depending if they want to get a different chassis to do whatever, or if they want to do a certain swap in a different car, I hope this gives you some insight.
That's why Miata is always the answer.
Nope. Miata's
Cheapest build.
They are a good bang for the buck, but. So now the work is put in, the money is spent, and it's a time to officially test and enjoy our car so Austin can have a gangster chassis for the season and you can have a bunch of fun driving with us. The next videos you guys are gonna see about this car are hopefully getting this thing aligned and set up, and then we get to go drift it and properly enjoy it, and I cannot wait for the results. I'm expecting great things, Austin. I'm most excited about, I know how giddy you get, and I'm so excited for your first lap of this thing because I think you're gonna absolutely love it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If there's any feedback you can give at all, that would be huge. I would love to continue to do videos like this if you guys enjoy them. If not, we won't ever do one again. If you guys hated it, it's fine. It's cool.
We're just trying something new.
We're just trying something new. So leave a comment and let me know your thoughts. But for now, you guys know the deal. Like, comment, subscribe. Stay tuned for more content, and we'll see you guys very shortly.